Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Damola Timeyin and this is
Niran, Vinod.
And we're here to talk to you about How to Build It, a book that we wrote together about how to build your brand and reach your full potential. Today we'll be talking about those specific things and some other interesting topics and our experiences with entrepreneurship, hustle culture and the rest. And hello to schools across the country joining us today. Lovely to have you here. We'll talk for a little while and then we'll throw this out to the audience for a little Q&A, so prep your questions. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Without further ado, let's get into it, Niran.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? What's your first question? What do you got?
Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
What is entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship, well, there's a lot of academic answers to that question. But entrepreneurship really is about building a business, taking a risk, and setting up something for others to enjoy. But at the very, very basic level, entrepreneurship is all about, starting and growing your own business, which is something, we've both done in different parts of our lives, I guess. Tell me about the first business that you set up.
First one was a forum when I was 14. I was a nerdy little kid, played a lot of PlayStation and football, and started designing on Photoshop. So I set up a website called Soccer Art with a bunch of other friends from around the world. And all we did was design football-related stuff. I'm an Arsenal fan, so there's a lot of Arsenal avatars and wallpapers. And then the site blew up. It had 500,000 hits a month. We ended up selling it to an American media company at 17. Yeah.
So I've known you for a very long time, but this is the first time you've actually ever told me that story. I thought we were friends. But no, that sounds really interesting. And when you started up this site, did you ever think that it would turn into a business?
Nope. Just did it out of passion and boredom. And then eventually just started getting hits and traction. We had no idea what we were signing, especially with a business contract, because back then we didn't have, internet wasn't as, I guess, a source of knowledge compared to now.
I mean, back then the internet was dial-up.
It was just MySpace and dial-up. Wow. Yeah, it was dial-up.
It was dial-up back then, MySpace, which doesn't exist anymore. But let's not age ourselves. That was a website that used to exist. Yeah. So you sold this business to an American company, and then what happened next? What other business did you create?
I started another website called Yin and Yang, which was in university, just to document what we liked, fashion, music, art. Initially, it was a blog, and it eventually turned into a micro agency, producing content for brands, everyone from Nike to Adidas and restaurant reviews, anything. It was just things that fell in line with what we were passionate about, and we wanted to create more outside of university and outside of our day jobs.
And this is what I think is really important, because actually I met Niran, I met you in your yin and yang days. And at the time when I met you, it wasn't because you were, you started up this blog, which is wildly popular. It was because I had a passion in photography and I was looking for people that had similar passions. And that's how I think I've met a lot of my friends, through a passion, through an interest. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that entrepreneurship can sometimes be reduced down to just making money. Yeah. But it also is a way to pursue a passion. So if any of you in the audience have a passion, something you're interested in, that could also somehow, someday perhaps, turn into a business opportunity. But what was the biggest lesson that you learned from your journey as an entrepreneur back then?
Oof, that's a tough question.
I know.
Actually, this also applies to career. My main mantra is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And as a running yin and yang back then, we had to build our own connections from ground up. We didn't have any hookups, had no nepotism connections. So we just reach out to people, cold email, cold call, and eventually started building that network up.
So that's another fantastic lesson. And you often say your net worth is your your network is your net worth.
That's a Jay-Z line still, I think.
Yeah. Jay-Z had a lot of lyrics that actually are very useful for business. But between, if you don't ask, you don't get, and your network is your net worth, those are two critical things for building a business. In my experience, I'm not someone who tends to ask for a lot of things. So I've learned a lot from you in terms of, if you don't ask, you don't get. But in terms of network, I think for me, in terms of building the business, it's been the most critical thing. So if you think about everyone in this room, everyone that's watching, think about your friends. They could end up being your next business partner. Your friends could end up being your route into a organization, your route to a fantastic idea. I mean, right now I'm running a business with someone who I was friends with in university and is still one of my best friends now. And we've been running this business for 3 years, but I never thought that someone I'd known for 20 years would end up becoming a business partner too. So running a business with a friend is fantastic.
Next question. How can you bring an entrepreneurship mindset to school or business?
An entrepreneurship mindset to school or business? Well, I think an entrepreneurial mindset falls into two brackets for me. One is about believing and thinking anything is possible and going, right, actually, if I've got a passion, I can turn this into something. And so bringing that into a school, context, whatever you're passionate about, believe that you can turn this into something that other people will enjoy and maybe they'll pay money for. So when I was in school a very, very long time ago, I guess how I did that was, well, I really shouldn't be talking about this here, but anyway, I used to sell Premier League football stickers. So my passion was football. I used to buy boxes of Premier League stickers and I'd sell them for a good amount of money a pop. And I believed that it was possible to turn this into a very, very big business, which I did at school. And then back in the day, I decided to, join up with a friend, and we started doing running concerts. We turned our school hall into a concert hall, essentially, ran talent shows for the entire county of Kent, which is where I went to school. And then, we ran maybe 4 or 5 of these, made quite a lot of money, and then we used that money to go to South America for a summer and spent the summer just rolling around various South American countries with the money that we'd made, just because we were passionate about doing something like running a talent show. And back in the day, it was a little bit like, what's Simon Cowell's latest talent show?
Is it
it was a bit like The Voice. That's what we did back then. We ran basically The Voice in Kent before it was a thing, made a ton of money, and then went traveling for a month, which is great. So I guess all of that to say, find your passion and find a way to share that passion with others, and you'll quickly discover other people might want to pay for that.
What was the biggest learning from that business?
The biggest learning from that business is that you have talents that you haven't necessarily used in the context to build or make money. So my talent at the time was persuading people and building a team. So we had this idea. My talent was, right, we need to build a team to execute this. So I basically chatted to friends of friends, and before you knew it, we had a 10-person team. Some of those people were doing marketing, some of those people were doing production, some of those people were just organizing the events. But what I learned was you need to figure out what your skills are and then put them to use. There's no point in having skills and just allowing them to sit there unused. So figure out your passions, figure out your skills, and put them to good use. So what is the next question? Let's have a look. Right, and as we do this, have a think about the questions that you have or anything that would be useful to you, and we'll do our best to answer it. So this question is close to, I think, both of our hearts, and it's something we talk about in the book. Hustle culture is a phenomenon that has become more, prevalent over the last 10 years, mainly because you see a lot of people on Instagram, they're doing their business, they're working all hours of the day, and they're celebrated for always being busy, always trying to, do the next thing, create the next thing. But some people see that hustle culture as destructive and maybe not honest, and maybe not productive. So do you want to explain what hustle culture is from your point of view, Niran?
I think you've summarized it pretty well. It's the Instagram, and you see on TikTok too, everyone posting their day in the life of a CEO. And it's usually just back to back to back to back to work, and you don't see them rest. So they glorify this overworking culture. So you sacrifice everything just to make it. That's the best way to put hustle culture. In my view, it's become a lot more toxic in the last 5-10 years because we're seeing every part of everyone's lifestyle through, or what they want to share through social media. And instantly you're watching, like, I ain't doing that. Maybe I should be following that. So what you consume is what you subconsciously end up wanting to do.
I think that a lot of it is down to consumption. What you're seeing is, everyone wants to be a boss, everyone wants to be a CEO, everyone wants to be Jay-Z, or everyone wants to be at, Rock Nation brunch. But that isn't always realistic, in my opinion. But hard work is important, and it's something that you can't get away from. You work hard at school, you work hard building a business, you work hard writing a book. That isn't wrong, but the hustle culture surrounding it and how it's portrayed can be a little bit unrealistic. Do you think you've ever fallen into that hustle culture trap?
100%. Especially in my early 20s, when youth was more on my side, I could stay up and work, put time into yin and yang after school and university and work, and burn myself out slowly. Now, at the almost mid-30s, I've got 2 young daughters. I have to be way smarter with the way I work because I also want to be a great dad. I don't just want to be tired all the time.
I mean, you are a great dad. Believe that. And you do work hard. So how do you balance it? How do you make time and make space for yourself and for the things that you love?
Routine. I am a very, very strict routine and habit person. So I have to wake up usually around 5:30 or 6 because my kids get up at 7. If I need any me time or training in the morning, get up really early. And this year I've started to add in sleeping at a decent time instead of just being on my phone till I fall asleep. I switch my pattern up to put my phone away and read a book before bed, so that way I just naturally fall asleep as opposed to scrolling an Instagram feed till I get tired.
You're a better person than me because I don't do any of those things. So I've got a lot of lessons to learn. And to be honest, I've fallen into this hustle culture trap, but absolutely want to get out of it. What would you advise? You've described the things you can do, but what would you give, or what advice would you give to someone like me who is slowly falling into this situation?
You got to make time for yourself, G. As important as making it work, if you make time for rest and yourself, you're only going to do business better too. Your mindset will be a lot more clear.
See, this feels like therapy. But I appreciate that. I think I definitely need to make more time for myself. And when it comes to building a business or building a brand, time for rest is critical.
But also, one of the big things, life happens in seasons. There's no such thing as balance. It's unattainable. Every day is a new challenge. So you seek it every day in a different way, but some days you're going to work harder than others.
Well, that's true. In that situation where there are moments of like chaos and hard work, how do you prioritize mental health and wellness in all of that?
For me, I have to do my gym session daily. That is my me time, and if I don't get that, I'm cranky. So for me, that's like everyone else has different ways of well-being and self-care. Some people game, some people go for a walk. You've got to find what works for you.
I'm still trying to find what works for me. I did 30 press-ups yesterday. I feel fairly proud of that. It's hurting a bit today, but I'm getting there. And I think that's some fantastic advice. So on to the next question. Now, out of the two of us, you're definitely the creative one. So this question is built for you. And it's all about being creative and unlocking your potential. How do you channel your creativity?
My job? No. So my background, I started off as a designer, also became a photographer, done art direction. I think for me, I'm really conscious of what I consume as a creative. TikTok and Instagram, I'm picky with who I follow, so I don't get inspired by mediocrity a lot. And in terms of channeling my creativity now, with 2 kids, finding time for creative pursuits outside of work is difficult. So one of the things I did last year was just start doing home studio shoots. Bought a little light, colorama stand, and started doing shoots with my little girls and trying to get them into that. So that's my kind of personal side creative pursuit. And the best way to learn is the internet. I searched up YouTube, it was like, how do you light a studio? Endless resources online from YouTube, Skillshare, plenty of Instagram folks on Twitter or TikTok just sharing knowledge. and things are ever changing. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my career is always stay curious, especially when you're creative. Don't get narrow-minded. Don't close your eyes to trends. Like AI is the biggest trend right now, and a lot of people look down upon it. I see it as an opportunity to help move things along quicker.
So I think making sure that you're surrounded by and consuming the right kind of content or just whatever it is really important for inspiration. So I used to be a amateur photographer. I used to, go out there, literally walk the streets of London just looking for things to capture. And I found myself maybe 4 or 5 years into that process of, just going out, documenting the world, that I'd lost my inspiration. I couldn't see what I used to see it anymore. But every time I went to a new country, there was something new. I'd be like, rah, that is amazing. This thing that I used to look at in London looks completely different in Senegal, for example, and always found inspiration through just being in new spaces. So my question to you is, what is a new space or a new environment that inspired you lately?
I mean, I'm going to Mumbai for the first time since childhood in a few weeks. That's going to inspire me just because of the change of scenery. I think my job is remote first, so I work from home a lot. So I don't really get to travel into the city as much as I used to. I appreciate the commute. Seeing different walks of life daily is, not daily anymore, is inspiring. Seeing London again from a different eye, from not doing the daily commute and walking through it every day. I appreciate the city's vastness and beauty.
You know what? That's interesting to me because a commute is probably one of the most inspiring moments in anyone's day. But the majority of the time we spend it looking at our phones.
Yeah.
Like now, I'm head down looking at my phone. Yesterday, I almost walked into 2 posts, one after the other. I literally walking down the street, and I was inches away from walking into a post, then stepped to the side, took another couple of steps with my phone in my hand, almost walked into another one. And again, for me, it's that whole transition from being aware, being present, looking at the world to now looking at my phone. And there's a lot of inspiration on a device, but there's so much more inspiration outside beyond those, 4 corners of a phone. So again, back to I guess what we've written in the book and how we've gone about our process of creativity. What would you say to people that typically are on their phones like me? How can you use your phone as a means of finding creativity? Where would you go? What would you look at? What tools would you use?
Personally, I start on YouTube first. You can find any type of creator on there. For me, I've been learning more After Effects and motion graphics. So I go on there and type in kinetic typography. How do I animate text in After Effects? And there'll be a step-by-step guide on there. There'll be 10 to 15 different variants, and just go through it and learn. There's so many different creators out there just sharing knowledge. Other places, TikTok's been great. I don't personally use it that much, but I know there's a lot of tutorial stuff, especially small things like how to fold a fitted sheet, which is something I didn't know how to do properly. Just went on TikTok and search that, and there's a step-by-step video.
Hold on, so you learned how to
fold a
fitted sheet?
It's awkward.
On TikTok?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to ask any questions about that, but I mean, that's crazy. I heard it on the radio actually, and someone actually talking about how to fold a fitted sheet. I didn't think it was that difficult. What makes it so hard?
It's an awkward thing. The shape is weird.
Okay, send me the link. I'm gonna try it out myself. But where else would you go? Who else is inspiring you lately?
Galleries, museums. I mean, if it's real world galleries and museums, but online there's. I tend to follow loads of directors and photographers on Instagram for what I'm into, just visual inspiration. They share their work, portfolio, editorials, films. I actually find a lot of inspiration from gaming too. So I'm a massive RPG gamer. I don't get to game as much anymore, but I just recently finished Hogwarts Legacy. I find the storytelling aspect fascinating because you've got to keep someone engaged for 70 hours or something to come back and keep playing to finish the story. Yeah.
See, okay, I love that example because to me, games are the most underrated forms of creativity. we look to film, we look to music, we look to fashion even for creativity. But in terms of inspiration, whether people like it or not, games and gaming, I think, is where a lot of inspiration can be found, and perhaps there aren't enough people looking at that.
How about you? Where do you find inspiration?
Where do I find inspiration? So, like I said before, when I was into photography, I used to find inspiration just out in the streets. I'd go out and I would observe. I'm a bit of a people watcher. I love to kind of capture moments that happen in like literally just a second. And then turn those moments into photos that tell a story, and for me those tend to be the most inspiring kind of creative moments. But it's been a while since I've done that, so where I source my creativity now and the creativity that I kind of find inspiration from is from other creatives, predominantly creatives from the African continent. I started an African beverage company 3 years ago. So in the process of building that, we wanted to really reflect Africa from an authentic perspective. As someone from a Nigerian background, my passion and my desire was to really show the Africa that I know, show the African cultures that I've seen, not the stereotypical Africa that is portrayed in media today. So I spent a long time reading books about African design, African textiles, finding and sourcing African creatives, whether that be in illustration, photography, arts, and immersing myself with that kind of content. And as much as the internet and social platforms might get a bad rap, it allows you to connect with people in different parts of the world that can show you what life is like in that other part of the world, and you can take that inspiration and turn it into something of your own. And I think when it comes to building brands, if anyone in this room has aspirations to build a brand, surrounding yourself virtually with creatives from different countries is really, really interesting, because they see the world in a completely different way. And then you can take that inspiration and turn it into something that is entirely your own, based on your perspective and the culture that you're in right now. So our brand, for us right now, we're kind of fusing African culture and creativity with, I guess, Western European culture and creativity, and turning it into something completely new. And it's one of the most exciting things I've personally done for a long time, and a lot of that is because I get inspiration from really exciting people from a different continent. So yeah, that's where I get my creativity and inspiration from, which is pretty fun. I don't want to go into it too much because I will bore you all to death. But yeah, thanks for that question. That's brilliant. I've got a couple of freestyle ones actually, and this is more about the process of writing that book. So, what was the most challenging thing about writing a book for you?
Just the process of getting in the zone. I'll just sit there staring at a blank Word doc with no words coming out, and then about 3-4 hours later, it just starts flowing. And I think the biggest thing that helped us was just having a real structure to the book and prompts to kickstart each chapter.
So structure definitely helps. I think in creating anything, whether it's a book, whether it's building a brand, whether it's submitting an assignment, having that structure is so important. And actually, when writing this book, I used to think to myself, how would Drake do this? Which is cringe as hell. But you got artists that write for a living, and they start with a blank sheet of paper like we did. So actually, in my mind, I was like, right, okay, we need to approach this like literally writing music, which in my mind was quite useful. But I think for me, the biggest challenge was getting past that sense of writer imposter syndrome. We weren't writers, but now we are, and going through that process now means that when I have to write anything again, it's so much easier. And wrote a bit of copy a couple of weeks ago, and literally looked at that and thought, damn, that is good. So I would love to write another book, Murky. Something that I think would be pretty fun second time around. And
A sequel.
Yeah. I mean, every great book has a sequel.
I'd probably do fiction next, though, just based on what I've read this year.
Okay.
There's something fun about writing fiction for a change.
I'm definitely not there yet. I've still got some lyrics to drop that are non-fictional. But we have gone on for quite some time, almost 30 minutes. So we'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions. And we've got the first question, the gentleman standing up in the audience.
Hi, my name's Adu, and this question is from Townley Grammar School, and it's, how do you start your own business?
That's for you.
Right, how do you start your own business? We didn't talk too much about that actually in the session, so great question. Starting your own business, I believe, starts with a passion. Think about what are you passionate about, and then consider how do you turn that into something that other people will want and desire. A business is only a business if other people want to, acquire what you are providing. You can start a business and no one wants to buy your products, it's not going to be a business for very long. But I would say the starting point begins with an idea that is based on the passion, or based on the needs that other people that other people have. So a good example, which is not my own business, but you might have seen it doing the rounds on Twitter this weekend. But there is a Nigerian restaurant chain called Tasties. How many people know Tasties? I see a few people that know Tasties. So Tasties is a Nigerian restaurant. They've got 25 branches across London. To me, it's just a local Nigerian joint in Leighton. And then on Twitter this weekend, I saw that they've now started to produce ready-made Nigerian food in Sainsbury's. Yeah, which is amazing. So now I can go to Sainsbury's and get what we call efforiro, which is like a spinach that you have it with what we call swallow. Anyway, for me that's fantastic because it serves a need, and great businesses serve a need for consumers and people. And that business probably started with a passion for creating food from our Nigerian culture. So right back to your question, how do you start a business? Start with a passion, turn that passion into an idea, figure out if other people also want to buy into that idea. Those three things are very critical for a good sustainable business. There are lots of other things that go into starting it, but again, we'll have to write another book to cover that. So thank you very much for your question. Appreciate it, man. Who's got the next question?
How successful was your first year of business?
Your soccer art business, how successful was that?
I mean, I didn't even start as a business. We did well enough to get bought by an American company, and then we were on payroll for the American company for 2 years before the recession hit, and that ended. So I'd say it was fairly successful. We learned a lot from it, but I never saw it as a career because I was so young and so naive into this world. It's barely on my CV.
See, and this is why I'm so surprised. I'm literally learning about this today, because you've never mentioned it. But to me, that's huge success. You started something that was an interest, and somebody else wanted to buy it. That's nuts to me. I remember when I was at school, I was trying to be a rapper, and that didn't work out. That wasn't successful. So you were miles ahead of me.
And you're sitting here on the stage of the mic right now.
We got there in the end, but I'm not gonna try and rap it.
How about yourself? First business.
First business was successful. Like I said, I set up this production company. We put on concerts and talent shows across Kent. Made a bit of money to go on holiday with friends, and to me, that was what success meant then. I think at the nugget of this question, what is success? It's hard to measure. So there's a different meaning of success to everyone. Just because you haven't necessarily knocked it out the park or made tons of money, it doesn't mean it's unsuccessful. I would say that success personally is about learning lessons and building on that and informing the next decision that you make. So even if you're not making tons of money with your business, it can still be considered a success. So money is not the only marker there. But yeah, success has many shapes and sizes. Next question, please. We got one right at the front.
What do you call it? Would you do something else yet, or like would you like stick to doing what you're doing now?
That's a really good question. So that was, would you continue doing what you're doing now? Would you stick with it or do something else? And that, I think at the center of that is about consistency. So Niran, you're the perfect person to talk about this because you've done many, many things in your career. So what's your view on sticking with things or, moving on?
I always move around. Like my whole thing career-wise is as soon as you stop learning, you move to the next job and you keep growing as a person. And I've not stuck to one industry. So I started off in advertising, working on various different brands, then moved to Instagram and tech. I'm always open to pivoting my career. I think my long-term goal, it's probably a boring one for the room, but I'd love to end up in politics in some shape or form. I'm not sure what yet, but it's a 40-plus goal for me. Okay.
I mean, that's interesting because if that's your goal, actually, regardless of your goal, a plan to get there is really important, or a strategy to get there is really important. So whether or not you stick with something or not depends on what your goal is. If what you're doing right now serves that end goal, carry on doing it. If it doesn't, I would suggest move on.
Yeah.
But I've also done lots of different things. One of my biggest regrets, and I was talking about this 2 weeks ago, is not focusing long enough on one thing. So maybe slightly different answer to yourself, but I wish I spent longer on some things and I didn't switch. I wish I gave some things a chance that I didn't. When I was in my first year of university, I started a business with a friend from school. Actually, we decided we wanted to make some money because university was expensive, and this business was developing websites for basically my dad's friends. At the time, I was like, oh yeah, I can build websites. It was easy for me. And my friend was a great salesperson, so he used to sell these websites. If I'd stuck with it, I'd be a multi-millionaire right now. But I didn't. I did it for a year, made a bit of money, and then moved on. At the time, I didn't realize what I was doing or building was an agency. So I was like, oh yeah, it's cool, I'm bored now, I'm moving on. So I wish I stuck with it, to be honest. In terms of what I'm doing now, though, I'm absolutely sticking with it because we have a mission and a vision and a purpose for this African beverage company that will require consistency and time. And if we don't stick with it, then everything we've done up until this point will be wasted. So I really believe that right now I need to focus, commit, and stick with what we're doing because the potential is infinite. Yeah. And if we decide to chuck it in now, we'd always just be thinking, what if? Thanks for the question. That was a great one. Next question, please.
My name is Olu.
Olu?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Olu.
Like, what if the business doesn't work out?
What if the business doesn't work out?
Yeah.
I think in life, you've got to take risks. If you think about what may happen if it doesn't work out, you might never start something. Have you ever thought about about that?
2020, I left a really secure job to start my own thing, and I was really scared to do it because there's pandemic and also a recession. And my friend's sister was like, "What's the worst that's gonna happen? You try, you fail, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn new skills, and you can go back to a job." She had a fair point, so I did it. I did it for a year. It went really well, but I had a second kid in that time and then realized I didn't want to just work all the time. So I stepped back from the business and went back into employment. I had no regrets, and I think it's about reframing it. It's not a failure. It's you're learning from it. And entrepreneurship, especially running your own thing, you're effectively doing like 5, 6, 7, 8 jobs. So you're learning so much in that time.
when you did that, when you quit the secure job, because actually, for full disclosure, at the time, Niran had just got me a job at Meta, so Facebook as it was called at the time, where he was working. So we were working at Facebook and Instagram. And as I joined, he left. I was like, I'm going to get to work with my friend finally after all of these years. And then he decided to quit to start his own thing. So I was a bit upset, to be honest. I was like, oh, okay, after all of this, he's now going off to do his own thing. But at the same time, I respected it so much because you took the risk. You had kids, family, mortgage, all of those things. You took the risk. And in my view, it did work out because you learned so much in that period of time that, to be honest, your success now is as a result of taking that risk.
100%.
If you hadn't done that, then you may not be doing what you're doing now. So I guess to the question, if it doesn't work out, you've learned lessons that you can use for the next thing you do. And if you don't take that risk and go and do the business, you'll always be thinking, oh, I should have. And the worst thing, I tell you, the worst thing that could ever happen is if you're like, oh, I'm not going to do it because I'm too scared about a business failing, and then someone else goes and does the thing that you wanted to do. And you're like, damn, that could have been me. Never be the it could have been me person, because it should have been you had you taken that step. Any other questions? That was a lot of questions today. Amazing.
My name's Silla. What happened to the first business you sold off to America? Like, did it prosper or did it fail?
That company shut down when recession hit. 2008's recession, not the one we're in right now. Yeah, it was a shame to see what they did with it because it wasn't our vision and they kind of sucked the soul out of what we were doing. But that happens in capitalism. Yeah, so Soccer is dead and buried. But since then, I look back like you did. I wish I stuck with it a bit longer because I didn't know what an agency was. Could have turned it into a Nike football agency. Just doing football art for a living, but had no idea. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because sometimes it's hard to let go of your babies and let them grow into whatever they need to grow into, and sometimes you just have to. So it's, you know, it's quite brave to let someone else kind of take it over and do their thing with it, even if it's not the vision that you had for that business.
I think it also saved me because I went to uni once the first time and then I dropped out. I've got Indian parents, so dropping out of uni is the worst thing you can do. So having that job on the side that meant I was earning money was reassurance for them. It was like, okay, my son's not a total failure. But it also taught me enough to then I wanted to go back to study advertising in art school.
So I guess everything happens for a reason, and
Yeah.
timing is everything. Awesome. Next question. We're happy to keep on going until there are no questions left, by the way.
How much do you make a year?
Damn. Okay. No, that's a good question. I think. Do you want to go first?
It's yours.
Actually, I tell you what. This is how I'm going to answer it. So my first job out of uni was in banking. So I studied accounting and finance, and then obviously as a Nigerian, my parents were like, "Yo, you got to get a serious job." So go and work in finance. I kind of wanted to anyway, so I went into finance. But the reason I wanted to do that was to earn money. I didn't see how difficult this question is to answer. I'm squeaking. So I did an internship at Goldman Sachs one summer, and that summer I was in second year of uni. I'd never seen so much money in such a short period of time in my life, and so I was like, "Yo, I got to carry on doing this." So after I finished uni, I went back into. I did a bit of student politics, did a master's, and then went into banking. And I lasted 2 years. I quit. The money was great. The money was amazing, but I wasn't that happy doing it. So I quit, and I went to work in marketing. So I took a pay cut, like a significant pay cut, from banking, which was good money, to advertising, which was all right money. Started at the bottom, and now we're here kind of thing. It was like horrible. And entry level into advertising back then was £24,000. But I didn't really have any responsibilities. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. So 24 grand was fine. It took me a long time to get up to where I am now, and a salary that I'm happy with. But I can't tell you exactly what I'm earning, because, you know, I still got to do my tax returns and that. But yeah, it took, I think thinking about what people earn and what you want to earn is important, but don't let the money drive your decisions. Do what you're passionate about and the money will come, would be my lesson to you on that. And in terms of, you know, making money as well, multiple streams of income.
That's you right now.
Yeah, I think multiple streams of income is important, actually. I would thoroughly encourage it, because one, you're not reliant on one stream of income. Two, you get a bit more money in the bank. Three, it means you can save and invest the money that you're getting from other sources, which I think is pretty important. Another thing I would say, if we're talking about money right now, is you'll get to a point where the money doesn't matter as much, and actually what matters is just broadening your experience and skill set. And I'm not saying I'm there yet, but I certainly feel like I need to stop thinking so much about the money I'm earning and think more about the experiences that I can acquire. So putting myself in positions where I'm in a room with some really interesting artists, and then on the other hand, putting myself in a room with like the most incredible entrepreneurs, and on the other hand, being in spaces like this where I can learn from people like yourselves. So these are the kinds of experiences that I want to acquire, and I don't want to have to think about the money that I'm earning to do it, really. So all of that to say is that money really shouldn't be your focus. Your experiences and what you can learn should be where your head's at. That was a long-winded way of saying I can't tell you how much I earn. That was a good question, though. That was brave. I like you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Giovanni, and how much did you learn from your first business?
What did we learn from the first business? Wow. I mean, we can go on. What did you learn?
I wouldn't even say how to run a business. I didn't even see it as a business at the start. I think the biggest lesson was learning what I was doing for fun was something that another business saw as hot property and wanted to buy it. I was like, yo, we were just a bunch of kids in a forum making stuff for fun. And I wish I had the business acumen back then to understand this is something that I can monetize. But the game's changed now. The internet allows kids to learn this at a younger age.
I think if you were doing that business now,
it'd be a different game.
I mean, you would be the hottest property on the internet right now, just because of your skill set and your network. Like you would be in a very, very different place. But it's all about timing again.
Yeah.
I think the biggest lesson I learned about from the first business was people. Like everyone in this room, your friends, your peers, your cousins, your friends outside of school, they can be your business partners. Often people are like, oh, let me go and speak to the people up at the top or the people that are, above me. Look across you. Your peers should be the people that you are collaborating with in order to build things, rather than having to reach up and above you to kind of acquire information and knowledge. Often the people with the knowledge you seek sit right next to you. So that was what I learned. My first business we built as kids, 16-year-olds at school. We didn't really go anywhere else in terms of people above us to build it. So you can literally build something amongst yourselves right now, and be successful. So that's what I learned. Any more?
My name's Jaden, and this question's from Townley Grammar School, and it says, what is the best thing to sell and how do you make profit?
Wow.
That's so broad.
That's an impossible question to answer because everything has its value. and people will pay different things for anything. Like, you know, the parquet floor in here, one of these parquet wood tiles could be worth $1 million to someone, and you could make a hell of a lot of money from it. It depends what people see in the value of that wooden panel. So there isn't a single answer to that question. I would say build a business that you're passionate about, you won't get bored building, and try and find the best value from it. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. I also say market research, understand the audience. And if you're trying to solve a problem, you also know what your niche is. But you can essentially sell anything you want as long as you build a brand around it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because it sounds like someone's going, where can I make a lot of money?
Thanks everyone for the questions. This event has been a collaboration between Murky Books and HSBC. You can follow them at Murky Books on Instagram or Twitter, and you can follow HSBC at HSBC_UK.